I want to also acknowledge, as Judge Williams has, the contributions of the two universities, Stanford and University of Illinois, in this process. I want to make a note for the record that virtually everyone involved in it was doing it on a volunteer basis to serve the needs of the profession. And I'd also like to establish one other point. I believe, Judge Williams, you said some 2,800 people were contacted, interviewed in this process, who represented virtually everyone who came in contact with her professional career who was available to question. So it strikes me that this is the kind of scrutiny which is rare, but was done in a professional and complete way. So here's the question I have to ask. When you were looking for certain things, over the last several days here in this committee, we have had a handful of senators argue that Judge Jackson is out of the mainstream when it comes to sentencing, particularly when it came to sentencing cases involving child pornography, for example. And this was stressed over and over and over and over again. So in the course of your interviews of 2,800 people who came in contact with her, would such of an assertion have arisen during the course of your questioning? Were there people who would have been able to observe whether they felt at a professional level there was any truth at all to that charge?
Well, first, Senator Durbin, you said 2,800 that we spoke with or interviewed. We cast a very wide net. So we contacted 2,800, but we actually spoke with 250 judges and lawyers who had firsthand knowledge. We don't rely on someone just saying she has a good reputation. We find out what the basis of that is. Have they appeared before her? Have they worked alongside of her? Have they been on a committee with her? And with respect to those issues, I'll turn to Judge Drayton. Sorry, Joe, I'm promoting you now. I'll turn to Joe Drayton, who actually spoke to various prosecutors about this issue because it never came up in any of the interviews we conducted.
Yeah, Chair Jeremy, we did speak to various prosecutors and defense counsel who appeared before Judge Jackson, the majority of them in child porn cases and child sexual offense cases. And none of them felt that she demonstrated bias in any way. And I can share a few remarks from some of the people that I personally spoke to. And one prosecutor said, "I do not observe any bias, and the judge was fair to all sides in connection with sentencing in all aspects." Another prosecutor remarked, "Judge Jackson displayed the highest level of competence and integrity throughout the proceedings. Her rulings on the state of the law were reasoned and steeped in authority." And we asked pointed questions as it related to bias, whether to be to defendants, whether it be to the government, and we found no bias.
So one of the senators on the other side actually tweeted that they felt that her sentencing in these child pornography cases and sexual abuse cases endangered children. Those were his exact words, endangered children. What I'm asking you is, would that have come out? I mean, during the course of your interviews with all of 250 judges and professionals who had contact with her, would such a thing have emerged from your questioning?
To the extent that a prosecutor or defense counsel who appeared before in those types of cases felt that way, it would have come out in our interviews. We have confidential interview process that allows us to really have transparent communications with the folks that appear before nominees, and we did not find any evidence of that.
No evidence of it?
No evidence.
And I might add, Senator Durbin, we went beyond the Senate Judiciary Questionnaire. So not just the individuals who are listed there that the nominee selects, but beyond that, to test her ability, to test her integrity, to test her ability to be a fair and impartial jurist, and it never came up in any group.
And also the assertion was made over and over and over again that Judge Jackson was soft on crime when it came to prosecution versus defense, that her background as a public defender, the fact that she would consider representing a detainee who was being detained at Guantanamo Bay, raised the question of whether or not she was soft on crime. I assume that means releases people who would be a danger to the community in an unfair manner. Did you find any evidence from all the people that you interviewed of that assertion?
None whatsoever, and Jean Vita actually did most of the work in that area.
And Mr. Chairman, in response to the question you raised, we heard consistently from not only defense counsel, but prosecutors, how unbiased Judge Jackson is. We heard phrases like doing things by the books. And for example, one prosecutor described a sentencing hearing involving a very high-profile, sensitive national security matter. And what she said was, it was classic Judge Jackson. She said, I had my sentencing manual, Judge Jackson had her sentencing manual, the defense counsel had his sentencing manual, and we went page by page, and it was a very complicated legal issue that they were trying to work their way through. And what this prosecutor said was that Judge Jackson put both parties through their paces. And what really impressed this prosecutor was that after oral argument, Judge Jackson took a recess, went back to chambers, and when she resumed the bench, came out with a sentence that was more in favor of the government. And what more impressed the prosecutor was that the judge's ruling included arguments that had been made both by the defense and the prosecutors during oral arguments. So it's not as if she came into the hearing with her mind made up. She listened to what counsel on both sides said and then came up with a sentence that the prosecution was quite happy with.
So from what I gather, and I'm going to turn to Senator Grassley, the facts as well as the observations of 250 professionals belie two of the major criticisms that emerged over the last several days before this committee in terms of the sentencing standards that were being used by Judge Jackson in cases, very sensitive cases, involving the exploitation of children, as well as her general approach against prosecution and defense in criminal cases, led those who were her contemporaries and her peers and worked with her on a professional basis to conclude that she met the highest of the legal standards that one could ask. And I think that is what obviously led to your conclusion, the American Bar Association, that she's unanimously well qualified to serve on the Supreme Court.
Your characterization is correct.
Absolutely, Senator.
Thank you very much.